If your blood sugar looks fine before bed but rises overnight or shows up high in the morning, you are not imagining it, and you are not failing at diabetes control. This pattern is extremely common, and most people are never told why it happens. The frustrating part is that it often occurs even when dinner was clean, carbs were limited, and no late snacks were eaten. That's because nighttime glucose spikes are not driven by willpower. They are driven by physiology. Here's the part most people don't realize. At night, your body enters a completely different metabolic state. Insulin sensitivity drops, stress hormones increase, and the liver becomes more active in releasing glucose to keep the brain fueled during sleep. In people with insulin resistance or diabetes, that system becomes exaggerated. The liver releases more sugar than needed, muscles don't absorb glucose efficiently, and blood sugar quietly rises while you're asleep. By morning, the spike has already happened. What makes this worse is that one critical mineral involved in insulin signaling, nerve relaxation, and stress hormone control is often low in people who struggle with nighttime blood sugar. When this mineral is depleted, insulin works less effectively, cortisol stays elevated longer, and the liver becomes more aggressive with glucose release overnight. This is one reason some people see spikes between midnight and 3 a.m. without eating anything at all. In this video, I'll explain how this mineral works inside the body, why low levels make nighttime glucose harder to control, and how restoring it can help stabilize blood sugar while you sleep. I'll also explain who benefits the most, when timing matters, and what mistakes to avoid so you don't accidentally make nighttime spikes worse. In the next section, I'll explain exactly what changes inside your body after sunset that makes this mineral so important at night. To understand why this mineral matters so much at night, you first need to understand what actually changes inside your body after sunset. Blood sugar control does not work the same way at 9 p.m. as it does at 9 a.m., even if you eat the exact same meal. This is where most people get misled and end up blaming the wrong things. As evening approaches, your metabolism begins to slow. Muscles become less active, digestion becomes more gradual, and insulin sensitivity naturally declines. This is a normal biological shift designed to prepare the body for rest. But in people with insulin resistance or diabetes, this shift creates a problem. Glucose that would normally be absorbed quickly during the day stays in the bloodstream longer at night. At the same time, the liver becomes more active. While you sleep, your body relies on stored energy to keep blood sugar from dropping too low. The liver releases glucose in small amounts to maintain stability. In a healthy system, insulin tightly regulates this release. But when insulin signaling is weak, the liver does not receive a clear stop signal. Instead, it continues releasing glucose even when blood sugar is already elevated. This is why many people go to bed with acceptable numbers and still wake up high. The spike does not happen at breakfast. It happens silently while they sleep. Now add stress hormones into the picture. Cortisol and growth hormone rise naturally during the night and peak in the early morning hours. These hormones reduce insulin sensitivity and signal the liver to release more glucose. Their job is to help you wake up alert. But in someone with insulin resistance, that normal hormonal rise becomes exaggerated. Blood sugar climbs faster and stays elevated longer. Here's where things start to compound. When insulin sensitivity drops, muscle cells stop pulling glucose out of the bloodstream efficiently. Muscles are one of the largest glucose sinks in the body. During the day, even small movements help clear sugar from circulation. At night, when movement stops, That glucose has nowhere to go. It lingers in the blood. This creates a perfect storm. Lower insulin sensitivity, increased liver glucose release, rising stress hormones, and inactive muscles all stack together. Blood sugar doesn't spike sharply. Instead, it creeps upward for hours. Many people don't feel this happening at all. Others wake up restless, thirsty, overheated, or with a dry mouth without realizing those symptoms are tied to rising glucose. This is the part most doctors don't explain clearly. Nighttime glucose instability is rarely about one bad food choice. It's about how the body's control systems shift after dark. Now, here's where the mineral comes in. This mineral plays a central role in insulin signaling at the cellular level. It helps insulin bind properly to receptors, supports glucose transport into cells, and regulates how strongly stress hormones affect the liver. When levels are low, insulin becomes less effective, cortisol stays elevated longer, and the liver releases more glucose overnight. Deficiency doesn't cause immediate symptoms, which is why it's often overlooked. But over time, low levels quietly worsen insulin resistance, increase nighttime stress signaling, and amplify liver glucose output. The result is higher overnight blood sugar and stubborn morning readings that don't respond well to diet changes alone. What makes this even more important is that this mineral is depleted faster at night. Stress, poor sleep, inflammation, certain medications, and high blood sugar itself all increase loss of this mineral through urine. That means the very people struggling with nighttime glucose spikes are often the ones losing it the fastest. This creates a vicious cycle. Low mineral levels worsen nighttime glucose control. High nighttime glucose increases mineral loss, and the cycle repeats night after night. In a moment, I'll explain exactly how this mineral works inside insulin pathways and why restoring it changes how your body handles glucose while you sleep. This is where most people finally understand why nothing they tried before seemed to work consistently. To understand why this mineral reduces nighttime glucose spikes, you need to understand what insulin resistance actually looks like inside the body at night. Most people think insulin resistance is a daytime problem tied to food. In reality, it becomes most pronounced when the body is supposed to be resting. Insulin does not just lower blood sugar by itself. It works by binding to receptors on the surface of cells and triggering a signaling cascade that allows glucose to enter. This mineral acts as a critical cofactor in that process. Without enough of it, insulin may be present, but its signal becomes weak and inefficient. At night, this inefficiency matters more. Insulin sensitivity is already reduced due to circadian rhythms. When mineral levels are low, insulin signaling drops even further. Muscle cells stop responding properly, glucose transporters fail to activate efficiently, and sugar remains trapped in the bloodstream longer than it should. This is where most people make a mistake. They assume their pancreas is the problem. In many cases, insulin is being produced, but the signal cannot be received. This mineral helps stabilize that signal. But insulin is only one side of the story. The second major effect of this mineral is its role in regulating cortisol. Cortisol is the hormone that quietly drives many nighttime glucose spikes. When cortisol rises, it directly blocks insulin action and tells the liver to release stored glucose. This response is meant to protect you during stress. But when cortisol stays elevated at night, it becomes destructive. Low levels of this mineral increase cortisol reactivity. That means normal stressors, poor sleep, late screen exposure, inflammation, dehydration, or even mild anxiety trigger a stronger cortisol response than they should. Once cortisol rises, insulin resistance worsens, and the liver starts releasing glucose unnecessarily. This is why some people wake up with high blood sugar even when they ate perfectly and stopped food early. The glucose did not come from dinner. It came from the liver responding to hormonal stress signals. This mineral helps calm that response. Research shows it supports the nervous system by reducing excitatory signaling and improving parasympathetic activity. In simpler terms, it helps the body shift into a true rest state. When this happens, cortisol release decreases, insulin signaling improves, and liver glucose output slows down. This is the part most doctors don't explain clearly. Nighttime glucose control is not just about food. It's about how calm or stressed your metabolism is while you sleep. There's a third layer that makes this mineral especially powerful at night: its effect on muscle glucose uptake. Even though muscles are inactive during sleep, they still regulate baseline glucose clearance. This mineral improves insulin sensitivity inside muscle tissue by supporting glucose transporter activation. When levels are adequate, muscles become more receptive to insulin, even at night. That means glucose is cleared more efficiently instead of lingering in circulation. This reduces the slow creeping rise that many people see between midnight and morning. Without this mineral, the opposite happens. Muscle cells resist insulin, glucose stays elevated, and the liver interprets this resistance as a signal that the body needs more fuel, so it releases even more glucose. This creates a feedback loop that pushes blood sugar higher the longer the night goes on. In a moment, I'll explain why taking this mineral at the wrong time or in the wrong form can completely blunt its effect, and why many people say it didn't work, even though the science is solid. There's also an important connection between this mineral and sleep depth. Deep sleep is the only phase where cortisol truly drops and insulin sensitivity partially recovers. Low mineral levels interfere with deep sleep by increasing nervous system excitability. People may sleep for hours, but never reach restorative stages. When deep sleep is reduced, cortisol stays elevated, insulin resistance worsens, and liver glucose output increases. This is why fixing nighttime glucose often starts with improving sleep quality rather than changing food. This mineral helps by stabilizing nerve signaling and supporting the transition into deeper sleep stages. Better sleep leads to lower cortisol, better insulin sensitivity, and more predictable morning blood sugar. This is where everything connects. Insulin signaling, cortisol regulation, liver glucose output, muscle uptake, and sleep quality are not separate systems. They are tightly linked. This mineral sits at the center of that network. In the next section, I'll show you exactly how deficiency develops, why diabetics lose this mineral faster than others, and how to restore levels safely without triggering digestive issues or blood pressure problems. One of the most confusing parts about this mineral is that many people believe they are getting enough of it. They eat relatively well, avoid junk food, and may even take supplements occasionally. Yet nighttime glucose spikes continue. The reason is that deficiency in diabetics is rarely caused by low intake alone. It is caused by increased loss and poor retention. This mineral is lost more easily in people with insulin resistance and unstable blood sugar. Elevated glucose increases urinary excretion, meaning the kidneys flush this mineral out at a faster rate. Every time blood sugar runs high, more of it is lost in urine. Over time, this creates a quiet but persistent depletion. This is why deficiency is so common, even in people who eat foods that contain the mineral. The body simply cannot hold on to it effectively when glucose control is poor. There is also a direct relationship between insulin resistance and mineral transport. Insulin normally helps move this mineral into cells. When insulin signaling is weak, cellular uptake drops. That means even when blood levels appear normal, the mineral may not be available where it's needed most. Inside muscle cells, nerve cells, and insulin-sensitive tissues, this creates a misleading situation. Blood tests may look acceptable, but functional deficiency still exists at the cellular level. This is why many people are told their levels are fine, yet they still experience nighttime spikes, poor sleep, and morning highs. Medications further accelerate this loss. Common diabetes medications, blood pressure drugs, and diuretics all increase mineral excretion through the kidneys. Metformin, for example, indirectly contributes by altering gut absorption and increasing gastrointestinal losses over time. Blood pressure medications increase urinary output, which pulls this mineral along with it. Stress is another major factor. Chronic stress raises cortisol, and cortisol increases mineral loss. This creates a vicious cycle. Low mineral levels raise cortisol sensitivity. Cortisol increases mineral loss, and nighttime glucose spikes become more frequent. Sleep disruption worsens the problem. Poor sleep increases cortisol and sympathetic nervous system activity, both of which accelerate depletion. Many diabetics unknowingly lose more of this mineral at night, precisely when they need it most. This is where most people make a mistake. They focus only on intake instead of retention. Adding more through food or supplements without addressing loss often produces disappointing results. Dietary sources also come with limitations. While certain foods contain this mineral, absorption varies widely depending on gut health, fiber intake, inflammation, and medication use. In people with insulin resistance, gut absorption is often impaired due to low stomach acid, inflammation, or altered microbiome activity. This means two people can eat the same meal and absorb very different amounts. Another overlooked issue is form. Not all sources of this mineral behave the same in the body. Some forms are poorly absorbed and pass straight through the digestive system. Others are absorbed but fail to enter cells effectively. This leads many people to say, "I tried it and it didn't help," when the issue was never the mineral itself. It was how it was delivered. There's also a timing problem. Taking this mineral at the wrong time of day reduces its impact on nighttime glucose control. If it's taken in the morning, much of its calming and cortisol-lowering effect is wasted during hours when insulin sensitivity is already higher. At night, however, this mineral plays a different role. It becomes part of the system that signals the body to shift into rest mode. When levels are adequate during this window, insulin signaling improves, cortisol drops, liver glucose output slows, and sleep quality deepens. In a moment, I'll explain the exact timing, best form, and safe dosing strategy that maximizes nighttime benefits without causing digestive upset or interfering with blood pressure or medications. Understanding why deficiency happens changes how you approach treatment. This is not about taking more. It's about replacing what is being lost, restoring cellular availability, and using timing to your advantage. In the next section, I'll show you how to use this mineral correctly at night to flatten glucose spikes and improve morning readings, without relying on extreme diet changes or additional medications. Once you understand why this mineral matters at night and why deficiency is so common in diabetics, the next question becomes practical. How do you actually use it in a way that improves nighttime glucose without causing side effects or interfering with medications? This is where most people go wrong. They either take too much, take the wrong form, or take it at the wrong time. When that happens, the benefits are muted or inconsistent. The goal at night is not to force blood sugar down. The goal is to reduce unnecessary glucose release while you sleep. That means calming stress hormones, improving insulin signaling, and slowing liver output, all without disrupting digestion or blood pressure. Timing matters more than dose for nighttime glucose control. Taking this mineral earlier in the day mainly supports daytime insulin sensitivity. That can be helpful, but it does very little for overnight stability. For nighttime glucose, it needs to be taken in the evening, ideally 30 to 90 minutes before bed. This allows levels to rise during the window when cortisol and liver glucose output typically increase. This is the part most doctors don't explain clearly. The body responds differently to the same nutrient depending on when it's taken. At night, this mineral shifts the nervous system toward parasympathetic dominance, the rest and repair state. When that shift happens, cortisol drops, insulin signaling improves slightly, and the liver receives a clearer signal to slow glucose release. Form also matters. Some forms are poorly absorbed and mainly act as laxatives. Others are absorbed but do not cross into cells efficiently. For nighttime glucose stability, forms that bind gently and enter cells more effectively tend to work better. These forms support muscle relaxation, nerve signaling, and insulin receptor activity without overstimulating digestion. Dosage should always be conservative. More is not better. In most people, a moderate dose is enough to support nighttime stability. Excessive doses can cause digestive upset, loose stools, or drops in blood pressure, which may disrupt sleep and counteract benefits. This is where most people make a mistake. They assume that if a little helps, more will help faster. In reality, too much can activate stress responses and interfere with electrolyte balance. Another important factor is what you combine it with. Taking this mineral alongside a heavy meal can delay absorption and reduce its calming effect. Taking it on a completely empty stomach may cause discomfort for some people. A small amount of protein or a light snack often improves tolerance without disrupting glucose control. In a moment, I'll explain why pairing this mineral with the right evening routine amplifies its effect. Hydration also plays a role. Mild dehydration raises stress hormones and increases liver glucose release. Drinking water earlier in the evening supports better absorption and reduces overnight glucose concentration. However, large amounts right before bed can disrupt sleep, which worsens glucose control the next day. Consistency matters more than perfection. Using this mineral most nights allows the nervous system to stabilize over time. Cortisol rhythms become more predictable. Insulin sensitivity improves slightly during sleep. Liver output becomes less reactive. These changes don't always show up after one night, but they compound over several days. This is where many people give up too early. They try it once, don't see an immediate dramatic drop, and assume it doesn't work. But nighttime glucose control is cumulative. Each night of improved stability reduces stress on the system. It's also important to understand who benefits the most. People with frequent nighttime awakenings, early morning spikes, restless sleep, leg cramps, or anxiety before bed tend to see stronger improvements. These are signs that stress hormones and nerve signaling are involved. However, this mineral is not a replacement for medication, nor does it override poor sleep habits or late heavy meals. It works best as part of a system. Earlier dinners, balanced portions, light movement after eating, and reduced evening stress all reinforce its effect. This is the part most people don't connect. Supplements do not work in isolation. They work by supporting the body's existing signals. When those signals are aligned, the impact is noticeable. When they're not, results are inconsistent. In the next section, I'll summarize how nighttime glucose stability improves morning readings, what changes to look for on your meter or CGM, and how to tell if this mineral is helping you or if another nighttime factor needs attention. Understanding how to use this correctly turns nighttime glucose from a mystery into something predictable. And predictability is what makes diabetes management sustainable. Nighttime blood sugar spikes can feel random and discouraging, especially when you're doing everything right during the day. But as you've seen in this video, they're not caused by failure or lack of discipline. They're driven by predictable changes in hormones, insulin sensitivity, and liver activity that happen after sunset. When this mineral is low, stress hormones stay elevated, insulin signaling weakens, and the liver releases more glucose than the body actually needs while you sleep. Restoring it doesn't force blood sugar down. It helps the system calm itself, so glucose stays more stable overnight, and morning readings become easier to manage. The most important takeaway is this. Nighttime control is about reducing unnecessary stress on the body, not chasing perfect numbers. Small, consistent adjustments, proper timing, the right form, supportive routines, and better sleep preparation compound over time. If your morning numbers have been frustrating despite careful eating, this may be one missing piece worth addressing. Always talk with your healthcare provider before making changes, especially if you're using medication. If you want more clear, science-based explanations like this to help you understand what's really happening inside your body, consider subscribing. Managing blood sugar becomes much easier when you understand the patterns instead of fighting them. Stay consistent and take care of your health.